Mrs. Afton is probably one of the most obscure characters in FNAF lore. We know nothing about her, and we don't even know if she really existed, but people still swear up and down by certain things that don't really have any evidence. But that's why we're making this list, because that's theories. They're theories. Alright, so let's do it, and be sure you let me know down below what you think Mrs. Afton's name is, or if she was even real. And at 10, ballora. There is the popular theory that Mrs. Afton goes on to possess ballora. However, I don't really like this theory, because you know, just don't. Many people who associate the name Clara with Mrs. Afton also seem to believe that she went on to possess ballora, and I don't know why there's such a high percentage that believe both, but still. The reason I don't like this is that it's assuming too much, okay? It assumes that she wasn't alive when he made the robots. It assumes that she ended up dying in an agonizing way when we don't even really know what happened to her. And it also assumes that she was around ballora when she died, or that a possessed object somehow was used when creating ballora or something, okay? But that would be an incredible chain of events, because William did not know about Remnant at this time. And if Mrs. Afton ended up possessing ballora, I'm sure that William wouldn't have opened Circus Babies, and if her death was the reason he started killing people, which we have no idea about, then seeing that she possessed a robot would actually probably stop him from doing that, because she would still be alive. Yeah. Also, especially when she's in a dummy thick robot. And I mean, her song is in reference to another woman in his life, or at least it can be. So yeah, I doubt that he would have hid inside of walls from his actual wife. And at 9, final reason. What if Mrs. Afton was the catalyst to all of this? What if she was the one who pushed William over the edge, gave him the ideas, gave him the kids, and then vanished or died or left him, whatever the case may be? What if Mrs. Afton was the one behind it all? I mean, honestly, a combination of these theories could be correct. I mean, like, further on in the list, you know, but like, she also just could have been a psycho or a hallucination. Maybe she died and then possessed ballora, maybe she didn't. There's so much in the realm of possibility here that we can never really be certain unless we get told directly by Scott. But maybe William was driven to killing by his wife, be it directly or because of her death, or their divorce, or whatever the case may be. It would explain why he didn't want to hurt his kids, despite being a certified nutcase, but the closest kid to William other than his own kids would have been Charlotte, hence why she was the first to go. I mean, if the mother died or divorced him, his children would be like the last things that connected him to the love of his life, so I don't think that he would really want to hurt them, but yeah, I don't know. We don't know. That's the point. That's the whole point of this list. These are theories, alright? Don't get mad. I know you've already gotten mad. And at 8, divorce. I mean, it's possible again. There may be another reason as to why Mrs. Afton isn't in the picture anymore, and it might not be death. The explanation may not be as brutal as you're probably thinking, at least for her, since I'm sure the divorce settlement would have been horrible for William, especially when he owned a company. The only real way that this could be true is if, like, they divorced before William had gone into business with Henry and bought Fredbear's Family Diner, though, unless they ended up having a prenup. However, a prenup wouldn't really be necessary if he didn't have anything, so we can't really be sure. But I mean, that's half the fun though, right? The matter could just be simple, with William and his wife splitting or getting a divorce for a plethora of reasons, but then that could also be why she's no longer in the picture. It doesn't have to be something dark and depressing or sad, you know? I don't know. She could have just cheated, or William could have cheated. Just based on what we know about William as a character, creating personal relationships isn't really a top priority for him, and neither is keeping them, so maybe the missus just felt neglected, or maybe she was pushed into the arms of another man, so we can't really be sure, but it's something that we can't really rule out. We can't just be dead set on her dying, even though it is also a likely possibility given who we're talking about, but come on. I'm just surprised that William ended up with the kids if they did get a divorce. And at 7, Mrs. Emily. Another theory suggests that perhaps instead of his own wife, that the mother of his children wasn't his to begin with. That perhaps instead, William's children are the result of him either previously being married or having extramarital relations with one Mrs. Emily, Henry's wife and the mother to Charlotte, who is the puppet. It would explain a couple things, like why he would kill Charlotte first outside of Fredbear's Family Diner for starters. I mean, if this is the daughter of the man who he thinks stole his wife or possible wife, that would probably cause some serious issues in his brain, especially at the state he was already in. It would also explain the whole "the baby isn't mine" thing from The Immortal and the Restless. Perhaps his wife was trying to convince Afton that Charlotte was his child, but he couldn't believe it. And again, the whole first kill thing. It's very important, whoever the first kill is, when trying to determine the behavior of a serial killer and then find out why they actually started killing. But if she was a constant reminder of his wife or the woman he loved leaving him for another man or not leaving her man, it would make sense. It would also explain why Henry just sat there in FNAF 6 and let himself die. And in 6, death. There are plenty of theories around what happened to Mrs. Afton, and a lot of people believe that she probably died, and honestly that is a likely scenario. But the interesting thing about these theories comes from how she could have died. A lot of people think that Mrs. Afton died in a car accident, and I mean it's possible, but that doesn't mean that it's canon, but a whole lot of people swear by it. Despite many people insisting that she did die in a car accident, it actually came from a FNAF music video. There are others to think that William killed her or that she just left him because she found out what he was into, but then for some reason also left his prime demographic with him. Or maybe she found out what he was into and then William killed her because of that. Something that she died in a plane crash for some reason, but basically any form of death that you can think of could have been a way that Mrs. Afton died. I mean, like, even if she was a sugar mama who died of natural causes, that can be the way that Mrs. Afton went out. Okay, we can't know for sure. And technically we can assume that she was under 40 at the time of the children being born if they were biologically Williams, and then therefore like rule out the whole sugar mama thing. I mean, like, kind of, but like William had to get money to start a business somehow, right? So maybe he had a little deal. Halfway through, into number 5, surrogate. What if the missus who had these babies didn't actually have any relation to William at all, and instead was simply a means to an end, and their only interaction was in essence a business transaction? Surrogacy is becoming more and more common, with women being unable to get pregnant due to infertility or health issues and other stuff like that, like Kim Kardashian for instance. But it wasn't really all that common back in the 80s as far as I could tell. But if you did need it, it would have cost a lot. And assuming that William was already making money off of Fazbear Entertainment and the whole Circus Babies entertainment and rental thing, maybe he decided that he wanted a kid, maybe to blend in because, you know, he's a psychopath, and he paid someone to be artificially inseminated, which could explain the whole "the baby isn't mine" line from Vlad, even though it would still be his because I'm pretty sure they would use his own stuff, but you know, I can't be sure. I haven't really done that before and I'm not experienced in the field. It would also explain why he got crazy because, you know, he didn't really get the fun part. Moving on. In it for psychopath. Then there's the possibility that she's also just a psycho as well. However, it doesn't really mean that she was committed to the same goals as him. Maybe she just wanted to go nuts and kill as many people as she could, but then William was like, no, babe, we gotta kill the younglings first, like Anakin Skywalker. Or she was just the inspiration behind his delirious schemes. Maybe she was even the one who gave William the idea about finding the answer to life and death or whatever he started doing. And the closer the kid was to the beginning of life, the more answers maybe he could get. I mean, it's a stretch and it has no evidence, but you know what? So do half of these theories, but people still swear by them anyway, so you know what? It's possible. The possibilities with a character we know nothing about are endless, so literally anything is possible. Like, William could have even started killing after she died because he wanted to complete her goal, and then that's why he possesses Vanny, because he reminds her of his wife and yada yada yada, alright? Who knows? Maybe he taped a penny above the door frame to bring him wealth, you know? Yeah, that's personal experience, because I'm still broke. Getting close to the end, and in number 3, Vanessa. The classic Vanny is Mrs. Afton theory. Now I know that this is definitely not true, since Vanessa is way too young to be Mrs. Afton, unless she somehow got like a chug jug from Fortnite, or like an immortal potion or something, but hear me out. If Vanessa turns out to be a time traveler at some point, which would be absolutely ridiculous, but you know what, so is FNAF at this point, could she be Mrs. Afton? Or better yet, could she be William's granddaughter, thanks to my theory about a 4th Afton kid? Or straight up, maybe Vanessa is Mrs. Afton's other daughter that she had years after leaving William. I don't know. She could have been in her mid-20s when she married William, especially if it was for the money, and then she could reasonably have a kid at this age in 2021 if the game does take place when it came out. I mean, it would certainly be pushing it in the series, but I mean, it does have a time-traveling ball pit, and possessed animatronics, and possessed people that can't die. So yeah, I don't think that this is too far out of the realm of possibility. I also included this number for the thumbnail because that's going to get so many clicks if I actually choose to go with it. But ultimately, in at number 2, doesn't exist. Is it possible that there was no Mrs. Afton to begin with? Yes. Like I said, anything is possible. William was already crazy at this point, and maybe he created the delusions of him being in love with this woman, who then he made her image into a robot, and then he paid for kids, or maybe he made kids as robots and then he ended up adopting maybe as well. Who knows, okay? He's the single father of a large company like Fazbear Entertainment, so I'm sure getting kids could actually be kind of easy, but then again, he's a male, and they're less likely to actually be approved. Who knows, okay? It's all about the connections that he had, and maybe he got to skip a psych eval, because, you know. This would put into question, like, the whole animatronics thought Michael was William at first kind of thing, though, because, you know, he wouldn't look like him at all because they aren't related. Or maybe this is only further proof that Mike is a robot, because then people are like, oh, William, since when do you have a teenage son that looks just like you? You adopted that thing. I don't know. Who knows? Nobody. That's the point. That's the whole point of this list, okay? Let's move on. And finally, in at number 1, Clara Afton. The name Clara Afton has to be one of the most annoying things in FNAF history for me, okay? Because nobody treats it like a theory despite that being all it is. The whole Clara Afton thing is just very outlandish because it's a name that doesn't mean anything and it doesn't really belong to anyone. Because, like, what? It comes from The Immortal and the Restless, and it's just a character in the show. Like, the other person's name is Vlad, who's wearing purple, so, like, is William supposed to be Vlad? That's the same form of logic that you're going with. If we're going to say that the character from Immortal and the Restless who is named Clara is meant to represent the mother, fine, but, like, that would mean that Vlad would be William's real name. So we can't really assume that Clara is supposed to be the mother's name. It just wouldn't really make sense for that context. I also believe that Clara is supposed to represent a mistress that William had, and then that's where he got his children, but you know, we can't really know. But that's the whole point. And if you want to know more about the Afton kids, be sure you click on the video that's about to pop up on your screen. Thanks for watching.